just seeing how their experience through their eyes in Toronto. And Dan Fleming, also another new father who came and also not only thanked me and my husband for coming down and talking to us, but gave equal time to my young daughter. So they all not only gave us attention, many of those players, but the fact that they treated our children as equals to us is amazing.
Yeah, and I guess for me, Rich Whiting, I think sort of seeing him play, played for Hull, and there were even some Hull fans came just to watch him. They were sat behind me in a game. But I've always been impressed with him and his diving tries, I think, in particular. So because so much, we thought we'd just end with so much of the joy of this is actually, because with the games, it will be definitely different next year, but so much of the joy was off the field. We had drinks afterwards with opposition players, and even the referees we had a drink and a chat with afterwards. And Maya, off the field?
Mm-hmm. I liked when me and QLT's kids started playing together. We started playing also with Doncaster, and and we had a fun game of catch.
Andrea, off the field, non-games?
Off the field, again, I have to say, believe it or not, socializing with the opposition. They seemed to have a fantastic time in Toronto. We're very friendly and chatty, and not often do you get to know not only your own team but the teams that are from away.
Yeah, and Hunslet, when they came over, I think they brought 150 fans, and we could hear them chanting. A pub we normally go to, they were on top took over the rooftop patio, and we're all chanting Yorkshire, Yorkshire, and you could hear it echoing through that area, which is not something I ever thought I would hear in Toronto. And I guess for me as well, just to end with, my wife called me over at one point. She was sat with some people. I went and sat with them, and it turned out to be Nigel Wood. So I sat and watched the Canada versus US game with Nigel Wood, and he even bought me a beer, or gave me a beer.
Beer token.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Simpsons family. First of all, how amazing is it to hear rugby league being spoken about in a North American accent?
Yeah, it was fantastic.
It's superb. And young Miss Simpson, if you're going to spot a die-hard rugby league fan, then you've got the basic foundation there if you're prepared to so staunchly defend Jake Emmett's existence. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that is the marker of a proper rugby league fan.
She picked up on, like,
he might be a thug, but he's their thug.
The big good news story when he came back from his broken neck. But then she also did say the worst moment of the year for her was the scraps and that. Yeah. So, balance. Great balance from the Wolfpack.
And if look, the Toronto story, more broadly, is just such a universal success. In my mind, I'm finding it really hard to pull a negative out of this first year of existence for the Toronto Wolfpack from the product on the field, which we expected to be of high calibre in a division where they would be the best team, but to the way that the club has manufactured itself from essentially nothing to garnering four-figure attendances. Now, mind the fact that it's seventh, in the high four figures. The whole game day experience, they've marketed it wonderfully to a North American sports audience in the way that, the way people attend games over there is different to the way that we attend them. They've not fought against that. They've allowed that side of the culture to be part of the experience of going to the Wolfpack. And then they've augmented that with this, it seems to be this grassroots development of this Wolfpack fan base. These guys, with the flares and the walking through town and promoting themselves that way. It's universally a wonderfully executed endeavour, and I feel very, very positive about the future for Toronto Wolfpack as well. Yeah. And I think they're going to be very, very close next season in terms of, they'll certainly make the middle eights.
They're making a big deal of stuff. Yeah. And not a lot of people in rugby league do make a big deal of stuff. But they don't just make a big deal of themselves. It's not all self-congratulatory. No. Everything that's popping up to do with the USA in the World Cup, or the other clubs that obviously the behind-the-scenes people are a little bit involved with growing these other clubs as well that might be coming into our structure. But they're positive about those things. They sing up all the good stuff that's going on around, so I think that's great.
And I think that was something that we didn't necessarily expect, but perhaps should have done in terms of using the North American attitude to sport as well, because it is very positive and they are very into promoting each other and building it and building it. And they've taken that positivity and really, really pointed it in the right direction.
They realise how co-dependent sports franchises are upon each other in America, way better than we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's been a universal and unqualified success, Toronto Wolfpack's first season in Super League, in Rugby League.
And another team that I think are going about things in a positive way is our next team we're going to touch on, which is the London Scholars.
Yes.
They were 11th in League One, but second in the League One Shield and got into the final of that and runners up. So we're better at the back end of the season.
Yeah.
Certainly backing up last year's best of the Southern sides performance. They didn't do much in the Cup, but we've got Dave Cantrell to pick up the story.
There you go.
The Scholars season was a bit of a mixed bag. It started well, with wins in both cup competitions. The first league game, however, was against Toronto, and we got well and truly twatted, 76-0. On the positive side, over 1,500 people turned up for the match, 4 times as many as our normal attendance. The main part of the league did not go well, and we deserved our 11th place out of 15. The positive to take from that is that despite only winning 6 games, our points difference wasn't too awful at minus 86, and remember, 76 of those were down to that one game against Wolfpack. That's an astonishing points difference considering our place in the league. All the teams below us were on worse than minus 200. While we did win the last 2 games of the regular season, the 3 games before that were lost, so when the league split into 2 for the 8s, I didn't think anyone was particularly hopeful. And then there was a glorious winning run. Before we ran up against Hunslet in the last league game, and one that was repeated a week later in the final, there was a streak of 8 wins in a row, a great end to the season. My highlight for the season is how much the Scholars are doing in the community. There's so much youth and kiddie rugby going on, plus the local amateur matches that they host, and they've even got an academy set up now. The young men who go through that get the usual rugby training and matches, but are also put through coaching and referee training and qualifications, so even if they don't make the grade as players, having more qualified officials and coaches produced locally can only help produce more local players in the future. For next season, well, I hope we'll make the top half of the table, but I'm not really expecting much more than that. Finally, I stand by what I said a few weeks ago about there being nothing to play for in the League One Shield. Excluding the special that this is our Friday Night Lights game when we get invaded by all kinds of Super League fans, attendances for Shield matches were less than 2/3 those for normal league matches, and at least one coach said on the League One Show podcast, am I allowed to mention competitors? Anyway, one coach said that he was simply treating it as just an early pre-season for 2018.
Right, well, thank you, Dave. That's more than I ever knew about London Scholars.
Well, we don't see a lot, do we? I think,
but it's by an economy of scale, a very well-run side, very well-run team.
The thing I like about it is they're building like a game day experience that goes beyond just the game, kind of like what Toronto have going on, and I think that's a way to grow when you are up against it. Because so many other competing like entertainment.
Well, in London, you are not short of options, are you?
So well done to them, and another positive season, I would say.
Yeah, bravo. So someone else who got a review into us is one of our more regular and valued contributors, Mark Butler. He's a North Wales Crusaders fan, Mark.
Yeah, so the North Wales side finished 9th in League One, just missing out on that top 8, but then they slipped a bit. Standard slipped a bit in the Shield, finished 3rd in that. They also lost to the All Goals in the early stages of the Cup, which the All Goals will have loved.
Yeah.
The Crusaders, not so much. And here's what Mark has to say about the year.
Hello, this is Mark Butler, the North Wales correspondent for the Super League pod, and I'm going to talk to you about the season for the North Wales Crusaders. The season began at a new ground at the Queensway Sports Centre. On the surface, this looks like a step down from playing at the racecourse, and there is a slight sense of the move sending the club to the margins in terms of geography, but also in the minds of the local people. However, from a practical point of view, it's actually really working for the club. Financially, it's a better fit for a team in League One, with rent being affordable and money made inside the ground staying with the club, and that cost being passed on to supporters as well. Tickets are cheaper than they were previously. The Queensway deal has been struck for another couple of years and has made the club more sustainable after the previous season's drama with retaining players and also late summer wandering from venue to venue. On the field, the season began slowly, with 2 heavy defeats to start with in the league, alongside an 18-0 defeat to Toronto, while performances in the League One Cup did defy this early form. In fact, the run to the final of this competition did the club a lot of good, not just with the boost that the final provided in itself, but also it helped to coincide with an upturn in the league form. Crusaders were competitive in defeat in the final against Barrow and took this into the other games against Heartland teams. However, 2 of those games ended up defining the league season. The 2 home games against Workington and Whitehaven produced a controversial last-minute defeat to Workington and a draw against Whitehaven, Crusaders being the first team apart from Toronto to actually take points off Whitehaven. But if those 2 games had yielded the wins that they could have, then Crusaders would have gone into the split with a decent chance of the promotion playoffs. As it was, Crusaders were the only team to finish on 15 points who ended up missing out on the top 8 altogether due to their negative points difference. Crusaders began the Shield campaign top of the pile, but the inconsistent nature of the season continued in this part of the competition. Crusaders managed to beat the eventual Shield winners Hunslet, but also contrived to lose twice at home, including a particularly disappointing defeat to Coventry. These results meant that Crusaders missed out on the Shield final altogether. The team itself is usually an enjoyable team to watch, sometimes to a fault, as there is a tendency for ambition to lead to mistakes at points when the team hasn't quite gained the dominance required, quite often too against teams that you'd expect the Crusaders to beat. The best players are probably Tommy Johnson at full-back and my personal favourite, Simon Atherton, whose meter-making in the centres or at second row is particularly enjoyable to see in a tight game. As for the future, life in League One is precarious at times, with the structure inconsistent in its nature and 3-figure gates meaning that existence is hand-to-mouth. However, it's telling that Crusaders have published season ticket deals already and unveiled the 2018 kits before the end of September, and are also unveiling new signings and renewals of existing player deals already too. And it's testament to the hard work and positivity of people behind the scenes that the club is looking to the future after the uncertainty of a year to 18 months ago. So, optimism for the future. So, that sums up the season. Thanks to Tom and Mark, and hopefully hear from everybody else.
Okay, Mark, thank you for that. Awesome to get your feedback as well. I was just talking with Mark during the break that you were probably only about a mile down the road from where we're recording now when he was at AFC Filed. Yeah. Not a great result for them that night, but we won't linger on that.
He's also still quite not got over that. Was it the round 14 game? Was it the draw with Workington with the late penalty? He's not quite got over it, has he?
Maybe time to move on. But North Wales Crusaders again, building in the right direction.
Well, there's the League One Cup. They were kings of the League One Cup.
There you go, yeah.
When we had that, and I think they've obviously set the sights on a more sustainable model, which Mark talked a bit about, and that's all good, I think. So positives.
That's it. Okay. One team whose future isn't quite so secure at the moment are the University of Gloucestershire Allgolds, and it's a real shame really because you and I have had the opportunity to develop a bit of a relationship with, let's call them their ultras, shall we? The University of Gloucestershire's ultras section, who've Whitson, Randall and those guys just followed the club.
And even
exactly, and how lovely to meet them.
In touch a bit on Twitter occasionally. His name slips my mind.
Best not offend
them. There's a fourth one, Patrick.
There you go. And how wonderful it was to meet you gents up at the Bash this year and see the enthusiasm that you have for rugby league. I really hope they fix things up at Gloucester.
We think that I might be the only person who bought a Gloucestershire Allgolds home replica jersey this year, which is kind of...
You'll be getting a tattoo of them next. You'll be a full-on ultra, won't you?
Suggest the problems. They finished 12th in the league, in League One. They finished 4th in the League One Shield, so they didn't really change up there. They won a Challenge Cup game, but then lost to Doncaster. They did quite well they had the semi-final as well in the League One Cup, and Alan Witts will pick up the story.
Yes.
Now then, lads. As me and Lee Randall usually write the same review every week, we thought we'd do a bit of a joint season review. Here we go. Going into the season, we were a little bit worried as we had not played a single pre-season game. This was soon put to bed as we played our first fixture away at Hemel Stags in the League One Cup on a cold February afternoon.